How's it going, friends? In today's video, we actually have a very exciting series of games to go over. Some of you might know already about this tournament I just completed, the Waco July Swiss, and you can probably clearly tell A by my mood and B by the thumbnail and title that it was a good tournament for me. I'm not going to reveal necessarily results and what exactly happened and things like that, although you're more than welcome to look at that up. Just look up my US chess profile. But we're going to be using this video to go over the games, just like I think 2 videos ago where I went over the games from the quad where I struggled a little bit. I went 1 and 2 and lost about 14 rating points. Keep in mind, that was like a 38-minute video, I think, and we're not going to be slowing down, and this was 4 games, so as you already probably know by now, this is going to be a pretty long video. So with that out of the way, just to preface a little bit, this was the 2024 Waco July Swiss. It was an open tournament with 3 sections. I was in the top section because I have to be. It was open, under 1,600, and under 1,000. And as many of you would know, I am over 1,600 and over 1,000, which means that if I wanted to play in this tournament, I have to be in the open section. But we are fine with that. We are ready for the competition that we'll be playing. So anyway, in round 1, I was paired against Benjamin Banks. Benjamin is a player that I've seen around on and off. He's probably high school age, I want to say, and I think he is he was late provisional at the time of the game. I think he just got past 25 or 26 whatever games. So he doesn't have as much tournament experience as maybe a lot of other players, but I've seen him around and I've seen him play some good solid games and even win some games against higher rated players. So I knew I'd have my work potentially cut out for me. So my opponent opened with the move pawn to b3. He played b3, and I'm like, okay, I wasn't really scared. I wasn't like, well, I don't have any solid prep for b3, but I was like, we're just going to play principled chess. Now, one thing about b3, and this will just be a little bit of context for the untrained eye, we're taught as beginners, and really just at any level of chess, if your opponent plays a move that doesn't directly challenge the center, that being these 4 center squares, just put 2 pawns there. Well, the thing is, it's not as easy against b3, because keep in mind, while b3 doesn't immediately challenge the center, he's going to put a bishop on b2 next move, almost guaranteed, and the bishop is going to be doing a nice job of controlling these 2 squares. So it's not really easy for me to go e5 and d5, because if I just did that, I would be dropping this pawn. And the way you would want to try to do it if you were dead set on getting the 2 pawns is something like d5, bishop e2, knight f6. I'm just going to look at the Explorer real quick. Something like this, e3 and e5. But it can get volatile after white plays a move like bishop b5, pinning the knight and attacking the pawn, so you have to play bishop d6. And then f4, it just gets very sharp. I didn't feel like going to that stuff. I mean, there's a line with queen h4 apparently, g3, queen e7. I'm just looking at the top moves of the Explorer, f6. I guess if you really know what you're doing, this is a pretty solid position, but I didn't really feel like going into any complication nonsense. So what I decided to do, I did go pawn to d5, but after bishop b2, I kept things flexible with knight f6. So with knight f6, the thing about knight f6 is I know I'm going to put my knight there anyway, so why not just do it right now? And my game plan was I brought my bishop out, because here it's safe to bring the bishop out, and a good idea, because next move I'm going to play e6, and my bishop is now outside the pawn chain. And I'm saying this because I'm comparing this to, say, Queen's Gambit decline positions, where you might get an opening like d4, d5, c4, e6, where long-term your bishop is sort of shut out of the game. And it's not the safest always to bring your bishop out, because white might have various tricks, such as pawn takes, let's say queen takes. I'm just not playing necessarily the best moves. But there might be some like queen, like knight c3, like queen b3 ideas. And the idea is that now that the bishop moved, the queen is attacking the b7 pawn, and it's actually pretty uncomfortable to defend. Because if you just play a move like queen c8, you're clearly making a concession. If you play a move like b6, well, then now these light squares are very weak. White's actually winning after e4 in this specific position. Just, yeah, bishop b5 check, I think, is coming, and it's just not a very pleasant position. Probably queen a4, then bishop b5. I was trying to figure out c6, but I think the idea is that if c6, there's like d5, and this is not a very pleasant position. So anyway, all that to say, I get my light square bishop out. I play pawn to e6, knight d7, bishop d6. I'll try not to go too granular into all the moves, so we're moving forward. No pun intended. Although knight a3 surprised me a little bit. I don't think the knight belongs on a3. And he was telling me his idea was he wanted to go pawn to c4 and knight to c2. I don't even think, if I'm being completely honest, the knight belongs on c2 either. I think you just put the knight on c3. And yes, you're temporarily blocking in the bishop, but the bishop has a lot of potential, the bishop has a lot of potential on b2 square. Just because there might be a piece or two blocking it doesn't negate its value. So, yeah, my opponent played knight a3. The other thing I found weird was when he plays d4, if he's to put the knight on c2, which is eventually what happens, then what's the knight doing there? I just didn't quite get it necessarily, but that's fine. He can do him. By the way, I just played this very solid setup. I just played basically like a semi-Slav, but with my bishop out. And then I played h6, so that if he ever tried to attack my bishop, I would just go bishop h7. Then he played d4, which once again might seem like, well, why are you blocking your bishop? Again, it's not about the present, it's about the future. In the future, if the position blows open, then the bishop could suddenly just come to life. And I do give Benjamin a lot of credit. I know maybe he's made an inaccuracy or two so far, but the whole game, he played very patiently, which was annoying as a higher-rated player, because you want your opponents to just make obvious mistakes that you can pounce on. He eventually did make some mistakes, some obvious mistakes. Well, obvious, maybe not to everyone, but throughout the opening and middle game, he actually played just very solidly. Bishop d3, just trying to trade bishops. And this already puts me in a dilemma. Do I leave the bishop here and let him double my pawns? Do I just retreat with like bishop h7 and let him take, and I have to recapture in a goofy way? Do I trade, or do I go bishop g4? Now, bishop g4, what I didn't love... Now, he said he was just going to go bishop e2 and try to repeat, potentially. I believe that's what he told me. What actually swayed me from bishop g4 was just something like h3, then g4. Now, he's opening his king side. Apparently, I have knight takes g4 here, which is fascinating. So, I would have thought knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, king g2, queen f6, bishop e2. Okay, well, apparently I'm not playing this accurately. Apparently f5 is the move, which is... Okay, that's crazy. I guess you're just claiming long-term compensation. They have an open king. You have a long-term bishop that's not going to be moved. But anyway, if I play queen f6, he would have to play rook h1. I guess queen f6 doesn't really attack anything. But yeah, I guess I have queen g6. So rook h1, sorry, queen f6, rook h1, what's the diff? Oh, queen g6 just hangs up. Queen? Duh. Oh, we don't need to be doing that. Okay, so I guess I didn't properly calculate. Like, I briefly glossed over knight takes g4, but I didn't really... I'll have to look into this more on my own, but I guess this is just better for black, and there's not really anything immediate. I guess the idea now that I look at is rook f6, rook g6, and there's not a whole lot that white can do. Okay, well, the more you know. Anyway, my idea, I just didn't like that variation because I thought I had to play bishop g6 and just allowing this. And it's a situation where I have doubled pawns on the king side, but he also has an overextended structure. And I think as I look at it more, it definitely seems like it's fine for black. I can just play king h7 to sort of blockade. Not blockade, but just sort of protect my king further if I need to. Now e5 break is going to be much easier to achieve, and his king is, weaker than mine. So maybe not the best judgment call by me. Bishop g4 could have been an improvement, but it's all okay. I also considered taking. I just didn't see any much life in this position after queen takes. I mean, black is slightly better, but I guess the moves to go a5, maybe go a4. That's also a possibility as well. I played what I thought was a little bit more maybe provocative, you could say. I played this move knight e4. And so my idea behind knight e4 is simply to intercept the bishop's sort of contact. And I'm trying to tempt him to take, which taking is, I don't think, a blunder per se, but it would make his position very, very uncomfortable. Because after bishop takes, I was going to go pawn takes. Now, here he has knight e5, which I kind of missed. I think he has knight e5. Yeah, he does have knight e5 potentially, but it's still very good for me because I would be able to take and then play something. Even here, like knight c5 looks good. Just getting to the d3 square. A computer prefers something else. It just says queen g5, which totally hangs the knight. But after queen takes, you have bishop h3, threatening mate. And then you don't take the rook. Your only move is rook a to d8. Let's just say queen takes b2. Then you go rook d2. And then you're attacking the bishop. Let's say the bishop moves. Now you go queen h5. And you're delivering checkmate. So my question would be, when I'm analyzing this, why can't I go queen h5? Oh, the queen covers the d8 square. So you have to play rook d8 to cover the d1 square. But wasn't there another move? Why can't I play queen h5? Queen h5 here, I guess, is fine, but knight c2, queen f3, knight e1 holds everything together. So throwing in rook d2 first is critical because it also covers him from playing knight c2. Very fascinating. All right, well, none of that ever was going to happen because he was not going to take the knight. But anyway, what I saw was something like this, where I go queen h4, I have the queen and the bishop attacking, and then just something like this. And I was like, this seems like a very good position for me. I'm potentially threatening bishop g4, bishop f3, and I'm potentially just checkmating the king. But, of course, he was a solid enough player. He didn't take. He played knight c2. I played b6. He played bishop a3. And I went ahead and took. So bishop a3 at first confused me. I was like, I didn't exactly know why you wanted to trade bishops. You'd be putting your knight on a, just back on a3 where it's not as good. Where I give him credit, though, is that my bishop is very strong in a lot of these situations where he could have played bishop takes e4, apparently. And bishop a3 trades the bishop off. So I think that was an okay strategic decision by him. I ended up taking, he took back, and the next move he just moves back to c2. I played rook fd8. One thing I was, pointing out is that, by the way, I tried to record this recap earlier, but I just thought the quality was poor, so, kind of like quit halfway and decided to re-record, which is why there are some analysis arrows already there. But one common dilemma in chess is you have two rooks on the first rank or 8th rank, depending on your orientation, and you're trying to think, well, where do I put my rooks? Do I put them on e8 and d8? Do I put them on d8 and c8? Where are my rooks going to go? And sometimes the first rook move normally actually is going to determine where your other rook goes, because you kind of want to make a commitment, because if I'm going to play rook d8, which is what I played, I can't then decide, I want my other rook on e8. If I want a rook on e8, I'm going to put this rook there, and not this rook, because then the rook on f8 is locked in. And you don't really want a rook on f8 or f1 unless you have like an open f file or potential for an open f file. Of course, there could be situations you're defending or something, but there are always exceptions to these rules. So what I was saying is, if I play rook d8, I guess I could just play rook back to e8, but that would be kind of goofy. So I decided during the game, I wanted rook on d8 and c8. I was debating between d8 and c8 and e8 and d8. And I thought at the end of the day, because either way, I'm going to get a rook on the d file. That's kind of the common denominator. I thought maybe there was more potential on the c file than on the e file. So I decided to go rook d8 and then rook to c8. So now I just have rooks on the d file and the c file. And if I ever break open with a move like c5 or something, then my rook could be very useful. So after rook a to c8, my opponent played rook to e1. And here I played queen to f6, as I noticed that the rook was lined up with the queen. And by the way, rook d8 was also sort of doing the same thing. I'm lining the rook up with his queen. Now you might be saying, well, Daniel, aren't there like 4 pieces in the way of the rook and the queen or something like that? Well, sure, but imagine if the position just blows up with something like this. Now, this would require him cooperating, but suddenly things get a little bit uncomfortable because the bishop's pinned and attacked. So if you're white, you don't really want to go into that. So I played rook d8 and then I played queen f6. So both kind of lining up my rook and stepping away from his lineup. So Benjamin ended up playing bishop takes e4 here. So he played bishop takes e4. Now this is a little bit different than when I was analyzing bishop takes e4 earlier because I had a dark square bishop. I had a dark square bishop on d6 that would be effective for an attack. Here, it's not quite the same. Now, still d takes is apparently the best move because, I mean, my position's just a little bit more dynamic. I have a pawn on e4 that's kind of a thorn on his side, and then I have like a c5 break next. You see what I'm telling you here? Already c5, and if he takes, I take with knight, and whoop! You see this connection, right? So that sort of could have been a better alternative. I just played bishop takes e4, which is slightly worse according to the computer, but my idea was I just wanted to kind of keep my pawn structure intact. I thought my bishop would still be strong on the e4 square, so I was fine with it. And I kind of sensed that my position was a little bit better. Mainly, I think it's his knight is not very well placed. I would beg to argue, that's not the way to put it, but I would argue if the knight is on c3, then white is doing completely fine. I would think. Maybe still black slightly better because I have more pawn breaks, but the knight being on c2 is a little bit goofy. So he played knight d2, attacking my bishop. So I just drop back. I went bishop h7. He then plays pawn to e4. So we sort of get this forcing sequence with pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes. And I was fine with it. Because I know I told you earlier how my bishop was pretty strong on the e4 square. And then 4 moves later, I traded off. But I was fine with this position because I knew that once the board liquidates, notice how now putting a rook on the d file, you see how useful it is. Because I have these pawn breaks that I can go for, that sort of makes him uncomfortable. So, you know, black's slightly better. I'm not just saying this because of the computer evaluation, but black has a very comfortable position. Whereas white still has some untangling to do. They've done nothing with this rook. This knight is awkward. If the knight were to move, maybe this rook is awkward. So I clearly liked my position here. So here I was debating between pawn to e5 and pawn to c5. There was also another move I thought was good. It turns out to be best, which is this move knight c5. The idea, of course, being that the d pawn is pinned because the rook would just take the queen. And also, I'm forking the rook and the pawn. So that's sort of what I saw. Although, I saw that he could just play rook e3, protecting the pawn, and I did not see a great continuation here, because I'm like, well, then what's my knight doing on c5? The minute he moves his queen, my knight will be forced to move. So I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing there. Now, apparently, this is only really good because of pawn to e5. Pawn to e5 is a really good move because if he takes, of course, then even though he's attacking my queen, I would take his queen with check. And then, so I'd just be up a queen, basically. If he leaves it there, I'm threatening to take the pawn. And then if he goes, what else was I going to say? If he goes something like d5, I can just take, and then probably e4, then maybe knight d3 is really good. And yeah, I mean, even though white has a passed pawn, it's also very weak. He can't really push it because I just take it. Black is just doing really well here. I'm just going to try a sample move. What if white plays knight d4? Then now you have rook takes d5, so it's blocked. Okay, cool. So, anyway, so knight c5 would have been better, but the better of the pawn breaks, I think, was pawn to c5, but honestly, I don't even need to get all of that granular, so I played pawn to e5, and the reason I played pawn to e5 is because I thought that if he wherever to play d5, then I would have the c5 square for my knight. Whereas if I had played c5 and he plays d5, I wasn't as comfortable with this, even though maybe not, my knight's well protected. Yeah, he just plays a move like Queen E2, and my knight is forced to move. So I like that version better. So I played E5, he played Queen E2. I took, and he can't take with the knight. If he takes with the knight, which is probably the most natural because, you know, the knight is not great on C2, so you want to improve it. But if he takes with the knight, I have a tactic here. I can just play knight C5, which is an attack on the rook, and a discovered attack on the knight. So he would just be dropping a piece. So after pawn takes, he played rook takes, which is correct. Now here, I started to smell blood. You might be thinking, well, what? You're slightly better here. You have better pieces, but how do you smell blood? Where can you find a checkmate or a way to win material or something like that? Well, I noticed something. And part of chess is pattern recognition and noticing sort of potential futures, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, that's why chess players have this stereotype of being able to plan moves in advance, because it's true. So what I saw his back rank was weak. I also saw that I had a queen potentially attacking the rook. Well, you might be thinking, well, first of all, this rook's in the way. I was going to go c5 at some point. Then it would force the rook out. And you might be thinking, you're not attacking this. The knight can cover it. Well, I pictured a scenario where his queen is not there. I mean, which is important. The queen can't be there. His queen's not there. I play c5. He puts his rook on the wrong square. And then I can take. And then after knight takes, rook to d8 would be checkmate. Or I can put a rook on the, first rank. Not necessarily rook to d1. I'll go into that in a second. So I saw that future, which prompted me to play the following moves. So I played rook to e8, attacking the queen. He should play a move like queen d2 or rook to e4 to kind of hold the balance. But he played queen to g4, which is, I guess it's not a mistake according to the computer because it calculates stuff, but I thought queen d2 was just better because it kind of prevents me from doing what I want, although apparently here knight c5 is strong. So anyway, he played queen g4. I was quite happy to see that because now I can execute on my idea with c5. You'll notice, I'll get into this in a second, you might notice the knight is hanging, but that's not really, thinking about c5, he should, again, just play a solid move like rook e4 or rook d to d1. Those are the only two moves for him to basically be holding. But he fell for the bait. He fell for my trick. He played rook takes d7, thinking he's winning a piece. But remember what I'm telling y'all earlier. Now his back rank is as weak as ever. And his rook only has a knight protecting it. So I sacrifice the queen! I played queen takes a1, and I am attacking the king. I took a rook, and yeah, now it's not going to be checkmate, unfortunately. I mean, if he wanted to allow checkmate, he's more than welcome to, but he doesn't have to do that. Or sorry, if he wanted to, like, taking here would have been far better, and then I would get checkmate without the queen. But obviously, this is a competitive game. He's not going to be playing for the memes, so he played rook to d1. So it's not as bad for him because he did take a knight here and then was able to drop back. So he's down in exchange. But then I started to get spooked. So I played queen c3. He played knight e3. I played rook e8 because I saw if he tries to go knight d5, which I thought was pretty strong, then I would have mate in 2 with check and checkmate. But after rook d8, rook f1, which was kind of a good find by him, just kind of hunkering down and defending everything, I started to get spooked. Because I saw variations. I was like, well, if I take this pawn, he's going to go knight f5, and I just don't see how to deal with this. Of course, computer just finds queen c3, and if he takes with check, I just go king f8. King f8 is my only move, by the way. So why not king h7? I would say it's probably something very concrete, maybe even just knight takes f7. Yeah, he just goes knight f7, and this is a draw. Because he can go knight g5, and then queen f5, and he has, like, sort of multiple ways to attack me. He's also attacking the rook, of course, so we don't want to lose that. If I play king h8, he just goes knight f7. So I'd have to go king f8. And then this, I'm just surviving, which makes sense. The queen and the knight are not really the most dynamic duo here, but it's hard to go into. Like, maybe in a calculation, I could be seeing a move like queen f5 and forget the knight is hanging or something like that. So, anyway, I just got spooked by knight f5, even though it would be totally fine. So I played. Now, this is not that bad. It actually turns out it's actually the best move now that the computer thinks about it. I guess the computer thinks about it and sees all these futures and realizes that rook takes e3 is just as winning as keeping the rook on the board. Now, so I found that rook d4 is also another good candidate move, but I played rook takes e3. I sacrificed the rook. He played f takes. I play queen takes with check. He goes king h1, and once again, I get spooked. I'm like, I want to take this pawn. If I take the pawn, because my thought process is, earlier I was up in exchange, right? So in this position, I'm up a rook for a knight. That is up 2. If I just do all this and take the pawn, I'm up 2 pawns. I'd rather be up 2 pawns in a relatively simple queen and rook endgame than just up in exchange, but he has a potentially strong knight. However, I got spooked, because after queen takes b3, I guess I was blind. I didn't see a good response to queen f4. Queen f4, and I was like, holy crap, I don't know how to protect this, because my queen is now kind of blocked. Now, of course, now I see I can play either rook d8 or, sorry, rook f8 or rook d7. I can do one of those moves, but that didn't really occur to me during the game for whatever reason. So I got spooked and played queen d4, which offers a queen trade. Honestly, if he had took, I was going to take with the pawn probably. Just try to use the passed pawn and sort of as a decoy, potentially. Not even as a decoy, just as like an asset. But apparently he's doing just fine after king g1. Yeah, there's this line king g1, and then he just kind of gets in. And if he plays accurately, he would just be drawing the game. So I play queen d4, but he didn't take the queen trade. The other thing to keep in mind is I'm in time pressure. I probably had like less than 5 minutes up to this point. So then we just kind of shuffled and traded queens. Something like this happened. I ended up stopping notation because we were in time pressure. And so what ended up happening, just to kind of set the scene, I mean, it was so crazy, I can't really recreate it. I don't remember what happened, but basically, I was able to take all these pawns. I think he was able to take one, because somehow I got an attack on the 3rd rank, and then was able to take. And I think I was also up a pawn on this side, maybe. So I was up like 3 pawns in the queen endgame. Then I proceed to lose like 3 pawns, and then we get a position, which I didn't, I think actually I can, let's make a new analysis. So it was something like, oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's do new analysis, set position, here, I was black, there's pawn on h7, f7, king on h6, I believe. We'll say queen here. He had a queen checking me, I remember that. His king was on h1, he had pawns on h3 and g2. I believe this was the position. You got check, and then there. Yeah, so this was the position. I believe. Maybe it wasn't, the exact movements weren't accurate, but this was roughly the position. 1 king of each color. The side... Wait, I made a mistake. Wait, huh? Oh, it's black to move. Okay, yeah, of course. So we had this position, which is clearly drawn, but at this point, I had 11 seconds on my clock. There is 5-second delay, by the way, but I have 11 seconds on my clock. And so I'm like, I could just like hide my king or offer a queen trade and just kind of accept a draw. But I was like, I'm going to be a little bit provocative. I'm going to go king h5. He then gets excited and plays g4 check, thinking that something's going on. Oh, you know what? I think his queen's on f4. And he had played queen f2. Not that it really matters, but I like getting that right. Because whenever I've set this up before, I've been putting it on e3, but I think it actually is just on, okay, I can just set up. So I can just put queen on f4. Cool. Okay. Because a later check he played, I'll explain that in a second. So is this not just okay? So Queen F4, King H5. Then he plays G4. But when he played G4, when he plays G4, the problem is he is cutting off the H4 square. So he then very quickly played Queen F2. I think thinking it was mate. If his king is on H2, it's certainly mate. But actually, it's not mate because I can go to G5, I guess. But he got excited and played Queen F2. So then I just took the pawn, and now he's in a little bit of trouble because I'm up a pawn and I'm about to take this guy. And if I'm just able to be up 2 pawns in the queen endgame, that should be winning, I would think. But he didn't really. I mean, he had time. I think he was just trying to play in my time pressure. He didn't really just kind of keep his composure after blundering, and he wanted to bank on me taking this pawn. So he played Queen G1, which hangs a mate in 2 because I play Queen E4, C6. I'm pretty sure I played Queen E4, and now his king is trapped. He can only play Queen G2, in which I take, and he resigned when I played Queen E4 check. Sorry, my nose is a little itchy. But, yeah, so I kind of swindled him there a little bit, although I could definitely say that I outplayed him for most of the game, just got a little bit, just kind of saw some ghosts when I became up in exchange. So with the win, I moved to 1-0 on the tournament, and normally how tournaments work is when you win your game, you're going to get someone harder or higher rated, and if you lose, you'll get someone, like, lower rated. Because the way the tournaments work is there's kind of the groups, so there's the group of everyone who won and everyone who lost. And there are draws as well. Normally the draws are like distributed either among each other if there are multiple draws, or if there's only one draw, because obviously you're not going to rematch them. If there's one draw, it's something like, you know, one of them will play the lowest winner and the other plays highest winner, something like that. I don't know exactly how the pairings always work, and there are color sort of constraints as well. But in round 2, now I get a harder opponent. I get Nathan Fewell, who is a player I've known a while. He also doesn't play as much as maybe some other players, but he is a very solid player, has been 1900 for quite a while, and has been 2000 back in his heyday. So clearly I was going to have my work cut out for me. So I decided, as I mentioned in my previous recap, I've been trying to go for more knight f3 and ready, knight f3 c4 type of structures rather than just playing d4 c4, potentially allowing either King's Indian or Nimzo or something like that. So here I play knight f3, he plays d5, I play c4, and to the uninitiated it might look like it sacks a pawn, but I can win it back easily. If I really want to, I can play queen a4 check to just pick up the pawn, but there are other moves like e3, I think even e4 is a move. Knight a3, I think, is also a move just to get the pawn back. Queen c2. I could even just let the pawn be. It's some common, like, Queen's Gambit positions where black tries to hold on to it, but they overextend themselves doing it. So he played pawn to e6. I will note in a game I played recently, it was on the channel. I'm trying to remember. You know what? Is that even on my main YouTube channel? Because I know I made a channel, I posted a video just for Discord. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, it was the horrendous mixed calculation one. Yeah, because I random calculation where I thought there was a not checkmate or something like that. But in that game, my opponent played knight f, who was 1900 rapid, played knight f6. The problem was I was just able to take and then play d4, e4, and dominate the center. So my opponent, clearly a much more solid player, plays pawn to e6. So that if I take, he always has the option to take back with the pawn, which is much more solid. Because if I try to attack the pawn, he just protects it very elegantly, and I wouldn't be getting much out of it. So I play the move pawn to b3, just trying to put my bishop on the long diagonal. He plays c5, which I think this is probably one of the more aggressive ways you can play against what I'm doing, because you're just trying to gain as much space in the center as you can with your pawns. And eventually he's going to kind of like break down with like pawn to d4. And like he sees my bishop coming to b2 and then plays d4, which is a smart strategic decision by him. Because now my bishop is my bishop is challenged as far as its mobility goes. So after d4, I took and then played d3. So I sort of get the structure. It's almost like I could turn into like a reverse Benoni with like g3, bishop g2, or reverse Banco is what I meant to say, with g3, bishop g2. But things kind of went wrong here. So first of all, I'm going to do a little bit of correcting myself. I've reviewed this before, but there were better ways to play the opening. Like e3 was apparently not the most accurate, but it's still theoretical. G3 here is just better. But let's say e3, knight c6, bishop b2 was right, d4, takes, d3, this is theoretical. And I say theoretical, there are like 10 to 15 games in this position with some, no like household names, but Alberto Barp, who's 2670, has had this position. Jens Hernessy, 2311, has had this position. Now, some of these could be Title Tuesday, I don't know, but clearly some formidable players have played this position before. E5 is not quite theoretical, but that's okay. And G3, the move here is A3, by the way, which I'll explain in a second. But G3, and we got this position. Okay, so there's still games in it, but it's already kind of like not great. So here's what happens. So I should have played the move A3 simply in anticipation of him playing bishop b4 check, which makes my life a little bit more miserable. Now, as it also turns out, there was stuff I just miscalculated. So I played g3. Actually, g3 is shown as the best move, although my position's actually not doing so good. So I'm going to have to do some analysis as to what I could have done to, like, taking, I guess, is better. So takes, e takes, bishop e2. So I guess now d4 is hard to justify because he could have a weak pawn. See, takes, and even like bishop e5. Yeah, and then you just sort of get a pin. And then if he just plays knight f6, I just play bishop e2, maybe castles, d4, and I just equalize. Okay, cool. So, anywho, he plays bishop e4 check. I play knight b to d2. And then here he plays bishop g4. And I'm like, oh crap. This is an unpleasant position. What I didn't like is that his threat was bishop takes d2, in which I would be compelled to capture with the king. Because if I capture with the queen, then my knight on f3 hangs. Now, I had a major miscalculation here. I should have just calmed down, just, you know, we might have made some mistakes, we might have a worse position, but it's fine. Let's just calculate accurately. So I should have played the very natural bishop g2, which doesn't really resolve anything with the pins, but what I missed, now apparently the more the computer looks at it, e4 is very strong. E4 is kind of a hard move to play. The idea is if I take, he's going to go knight e5, and now he has this pressure. So maybe now that there's more thought into it, bishop g2 is not that because of e4. But anyway, what I miscalculated was I thought his move was queen f6, and he's doing very well. The thing is, I only calculate queen f6 after castles, in which castles would be losing because of bishop takes d2. And I can't recapture with the knight because I lose my queen. And if I recapture with the queen, he then takes my free piece. But after queen f6, I don't have to castle. I can play h3, then g4, and I break this pin. And after bishop g6, then I can just play... says queen e2 or castles, and now I only have one pin to deal with, which I can easily just resolve with a3 and b4 if I need to. So all that to say, that was kind of a miscalculation on my part. Now, if I had played bishop g2 and he plays e4, it would have been a struggle here. I think maybe I would have found queen e2 because it just seems to make a lot of sense because you're pinning the pawn. There's kind of another attacker on it, but after queen e2, he apparently has this line, bishop takes, king takes, let's see, knight f6, h3, bishop h5, g4, bishop g6, knight to h4, says he's castles. I'm just curious what the line is. Knight takes, h takes, and then takes. This is actually very similar to what happened in the game, funnily enough. So anywho, that could have been, you know, better, but I played a3. And here, actually, a3 is losing, not because of bishop takes d2, forcing my king to move, but, and he didn't find this move, but he can play bishop to c3. He plays bishop to c3, so he's attacking my bishop. If I take, he takes with the d-pawn. If I play knight a4, he plays knight d4. So by taking on c3, he now kind of clears the d4 square for the knight, and I just have this going on. Like, it's no fun. And then if I just, like, do something like move, if I just, like, move the queen or move the rook, well, here bishop takes f3 is winning. So not, I guess in both positions. Well, if I play rook b1, my queen still defends, but he plays e4, which is apparently just much more effective here, and then queen f6, and it's just, yeah, very, very unpleasant position. But bishop c3 is a tough move to come up with. So he just took on d2, which makes sense because as I just went over, I have to recapture with the king. And I'm basically just playing kind of hunker down here. I'm like, my king's in the center, but the position's kind of locked up. He doesn't have a clear and straightforward way to attack, so I can just hunker down and try to maybe hold a draw here. So, after king takes d2, my opponent played knight f6. Now here I'm still a little bit tilted. So I played h3, which is good, and then g4, which is good. Or I think g4 was pretty good, yeah. And then here, I play this move knight h4, which in itself is not really a mistake. I just missed his move knight e4 check. Which, as you calculate more, and this is what happened in the game, pawn takes, queen takes, pawn to f3, he doesn't really have very much going for him. Sure, he has his queen aggressively placed on h4, but if he ever goes queen f2, I can just block with queen e2, and he doesn't really have a great way forward. So he plays this move pawn to h5. I play bishop d3, which simultaneously blockades the pawn and connects the rook. He plays rook c8 here, and I play rook c1 castles, and here I decided I would go king c2, king b1, maybe king a2, and just castle by hand. I'm just going to castle by hand here, so I played king to c2. Now, king c2 is a very brave move to play generally, because you notice this lineup, and you're like, well, isn't there anything he can do? And the move I calculated that I thought might exploit something is pawn to b5. But after b5, I was going to play king b1. Now, apparently, I think I can take. I mean, taking is possible, but no one would ever do this because there's knight b4 check. And the thing, he just doesn't have a great discovery. I think there was something like, maybe like knight a5 was actually a try. But king b1, and if rook takes, the idea is that he would be attacking here, but I have bishop takes, and I'm just holding on. And if he plays knight b4, I just go here, and if he trades bishops, that's fine. But after b5, I was going to go king b1, and if he took, I would just take with the bishop. It says rook is better, but I was probably going to go here. But anyway, I mean, the point is my king is not quite getting exploited. I would just be able to move off the c-file before he can do anything dangerous, right? So he plays queen e7. I play, sorry, so king c2, queen e7, king b1, then he played f6. I play queen d2. He played knight d8. So his idea behind knight d8 is he wants to put his knight on e6. And from e6, he wants to potentially go to f4, not just, oh, sorry, my arrows are having a field day today, but not just f4, but also knight c5 could be dangerous in some positions. And you will see what I'm talking about in a second. So what do I do? Well, if I want to stop his knight from going to f4, what do? I play pawn to f4. I put my own pawn on f4, so now he can no longer go there. But here's the thing. So f4 was a good find, but I didn't follow up correctly. He took on f4, and I misplayed it from here. I should just take on g5 and start kind of focusing my efforts potentially on the king side. Maybe like queen g2 or something like that. But I didn't do that. And I saw bishop takes d4 that I hang the a3 pawn. So after pawn takes f4, I just played what I thought was the most natural move. I played queen takes f4, which after knight e6, I'm still okay if I put my queen on the right square, like f3, which protects e4, which is important in a second. I didn't do that. I played queen f2, which loses to this move knight c5. So he plays knight c5, and I'm toast. I am burnt toast in this position. So, and I'm not just saying this because the computer says it. He played knight c5. I have 8 minutes left, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm just losing. I'm going to lose this game. You know, we tried to fight back. We tried to be resilient, but he just found better moves than I did. He outmaneuvered me, and yeah, so here's why it's losing. The bishop's attacked, the pawn's attacked. And that's just not any old pawn. That's a pawn that could, like, facilitate discover attacks. It could facilitate forks with the king and the rook. It's a very dangerous pawn to just lose. Also, he's attacking this. So this knight is a superhero. It's attacking 3 units at once. So let's break it down. The reason bishop c2 doesn't work, which I think is the most natural because I'm protecting the pawn, and I'm also, you know, if you ever try to, like, take on e4 or something, there's pressure. But he has the move pawn to d3. And d3 intercepts my bishop's contact with the e4 pawn, and then he just plays bishop takes e4, he's attacking this, and d2's a threat. And it's just game over, pretty much. If I play after knight c5, if I play anything like b4 or something, he takes my bishop, obviously. And if I try to protect my bishop, he takes, and then can go bishop or queen e4. But this is probably just simplest. And he wins an exchange here. He's going to win an exchange and then some. I mean, his position's still really good. I mean, I guess I can try to hold on with, like... Ooh, if I go here, he has rook d8, doesn't he? Like, you see, I saw that before I put it on the computer. But yeah, this would just... I would just be toast here. Probably similar outcome if bishop takes. He just plays this. Oh, he just wins a full rook. Okay, that makes sense. So, anyway. So if I defend with my rook, he will just take. So I'm like... so I spent 6 minutes left out of my 8 remaining minutes. I was like, I thought I was dead lost. I might as well just spend some time just seeing if there's a miracle defensive resource. But I was just like, I'm just going to play bishop c2. And really, I didn't even see what was better about bishop c2. I guess other than it's just a little bit more complicated. He has to find d3 and then bishop take. It's just more moves for him. Whereas, well, maybe it's the same amount of moves. So let's see. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 to take my rook. If I just gone here, it would be... Sorry. It would be 1, 2, and then 3 to take my rook. So maybe it's like slightly more complicated variation, but I was just like, I'm just going to play bishop c2. And then, you know, he's just going to play d3, and then I'm close to being able to resign after just play some moves. You know, he'll play d3, I'll just play like here or something, he'll take. Maybe I go rook f1 or something, and then he goes d2, and I'll just resign here. That did not happen. After bishop c2, he played knight takes e4. And we are back. We are back like Donkey Kong. He played knight takes e4. I quickly, actually it wasn't quick. I probably spent the whole minute just, oh, sorry. I probably spent the whole minute just like, what the heck? I'm just fine here. I just take on d4 and see this pawn on d4, that's the problem, was the source of a lot of my troubles here. The knight and the pawn have this combination going to where he can basically just take me out with that. He then just takes, and then I take, and I'm like, I'm back in the game. Now, I recognize I'm still struggling. My king might be a little bit weak. My bishops are kind of not the greatest. He could just, like, put a rook on the d file or something. But I was like, and he still has some tricks, but I'm like, okay, we're back in the game. So he plays rook fd8, and so now we're approaching time pressure. If I didn't put a disclaimer, by the way, this game was broadcasted on DGT. So some of the games do have clock times, other games don't. The games that are broadcasted on DGT have clock times, it's actually a cool technology where it'll just like record your moves and the time usage, which is actually very helpful because I can just see during my games like what time I use. I can tell you I spent a minute out of my 244 remaining on this move, on taking 8-7, which just loses the game actually. He didn't see it. Now I'm actually a little bit surprised. I'm actually quite a bit surprised he didn't just play Rook A8 on intuition alone, let alone Rook A8 just wins, because it attacks the queen. And if I go to E3, which is probably the most natural square, he goes Knight D2, and he wins my queen because of this attack on the queen, and also the rook is protecting. So if I go like Queen G1 or something, which is probably what I would have played, he has this move Knight C3. Then after Bishop C3, Queen A3, and there's unstoppable mate on A2. There's nothing I can do. If I try to give my king an escape square, because it's not A1 because my bishop's covering it, if I just try to move my rook or something, notice he has this pin. So he has queen takes B3 check. And I'm getting mated. I'm just getting sauced here, right? But for whatever reason, he didn't play rook A8. He played knight D2 check. Maybe thinking that after king A2 there was some tactic here. I'm not exactly sure, but now if he plays rook A8, now I don't know what I would have done during the game since it was like crazy time scramble. I probably would have just moved my queen, which probably loses. Okay, he plays queen, not queen A3. He goes queen B4, which would be absolutely crazy to see. The idea is that the threat is bishop takes C2, then queen takes B3, and my position's just falling apart. So after bishop takes C2, oh yeah, what I was going to say is if he had played rook A8 here, the move I have to equalize is actually just sacking my queen. I'm so sorry, guys. My nose... Sometimes when I record videos, my nose just starts itching. I think it's the type of thing to where, like, I know my brain starts to tell me I can't be, like, touching my nose and things like that, and then it just starts to itch because it just wants to just play with my feelings or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. Let's just pretend I have a cold or something, and I just, like... In fact, give me 1 second. Okay, so just so it doesn't look like I'm just putting germs on my hands, even though it's just really me here, and I'm going to wash my hands before I do anything like handling food or shaking hands or anything, I just brought this. So my nose itches. I'll just like do this. Anyway, so yeah, here I have to sack the queen and then take the bishop. And then the point is it's equal material because I took a rook, a bishop, and I took a pawn earlier. Remember, I took the A7 pawn. So I took those pieces for the queen, and then this is just like dynamically equal. If he takes, actually, it says I'm doing good after rook H1. But anyway, I probably would just taken back on intuition and then like, okay, we just play on from here. It might still look like that there's some combination going on with the attack, but I guess there's just not really anything. Anywho, so, but that didn't happen. For whatever reason, he just never put his rook on A8, which if he did, he probably just wins the game. He plays bishop takes C2, and then I played rook takes C2. He played queen E4, so it looks like he's forking my two rooks, but obviously, if my rooks are forked, then I just move one to protect the other. I was considering that, or if I go here, what was wrong with it? I guess there was nothing really wrong with it. I just thought that this was maybe more solid because I kind of want to protect my king. He took and I took. Now, taking is losing. I didn't realize this during the game. Also, I forget to mention, just notice the clock time. I have like less than a minute here. So I'm doing well on the board here, but the clock is a whole other factor because I just have to like make all these rushed moves in order not to lose on time. So I didn't even realize. I thought he would just take the pawn, then I just do something. So it turns out if he takes the pawn, I'm actually going to open this up to you. It is white to play and find the best moves, or find, what you would play. As I see, there are at least 3 moves that do good. Yeah, I would say there are, well, really, okay, that. One move is also good. I'd say there are 2 thematic moves, but there are multiple moves that are also on the same level as far as the computer evaluation goes. So Yeah, here. Feel free to pause the video, and I will see you in a second. All right, so I think this is what I neglected to notice during the time scramble and everything, is that if he had taken on g4, he didn't take g4 to be clear. He didn't do that, so I didn't even have to find it. But the g1 square, my rook can go there. My queen is covering it, and it enables bishop takes f6. So I can either go rook g1, he moves the queen somewhere. Well, I guess I chose this square, which happens to defend this, so the point would be if he goes... Well, I chose another square. If he goes like here or something, then I just... Oh, wait. This is also attacked. Okay, so I would have to play queen takes b7 first, and then threaten mate. And he just has to play like queen takes b3 and bail out. Or the nastier move is if I play bishop takes f6 first. Because if he takes, I go rook g1. And my queen from all the way on a7 is protecting the rook. So that would have been good. If he had done it, I had found it. But he played queen f3. I played rook c3. Rook c3 is protecting the b3 square. So I played rook c3. He played queen c6. I played queen e3. Again, just making moves in a time scramble. Queen f3. Here I have 18 seconds left, so there's a lot of uncertainty as to what's going to happen. Here he played queen to b6. I played rook to e1. And then here he blundered. And he has plenty of time, so it's kind of a little bit surprising that he did this. Part of the thing with time scrambles, and this also kind of came up in the first game, is when you're in time pressure, or let's say you're the opponent, and your opponent, I just said you're the opponent, then your opponent, but let's say your opponent's in time pressure. On the one hand, and I'd say the conventional wisdom, you just want to just take your time. But there's also the tempting option, just play quickly, so that your opponent moves quickly. Because if Nate just plays like a move instantly, then I don't really have any time to think. And obviously, I'm thinking on his time. So I saw on his time, like, I was looking for tactics. Like, there wasn't really anything. I'm attacking the knight. If he moves the knight, I can just, like, trade or something. I'm solid. Or queen d5. And I'm like, he could try knight c3, because it looks like there's a discovery. But I just play bishop takes, knight protect. Then sure enough, he plays knight c3. And I immediately took it. Well, again, not immediately. I took 7 seconds to take it because, assuming the DGT is accurate, there's a 5-second delay, and I just took another 2 seconds. So I might have just been double checking, like, I'm not blundering anything, so I just took, and then he took, and I took. So now the situation is we're up in exchange. Actually, we're up, like, much more than that, but we still have 12 seconds left. With the 5-second delay. So if I just make every move within 5 seconds, I'll be fine, in theory. So what he does, and I understand this move by him. Well, not necessarily the move, but sort of the draw offer. He plays rook c5 and offers a draw, but I didn't even, like, accept or decline. If you just play a move without accepting the offer, it's just an automatic decline. I just didn't say anything. I just played bishop f2. And yeah, rook c5 just kind of blunders a pin. And I think he just had, like, a brain fart here or something like that. He just played rook c6, and then I was just able to take the queen, and he resigned. And then you can say, like, but you have 12 seconds left. I mean, for someone at my caliber, this is easily winning. I mean, computer says there's a mate in 4. I'm not necessarily sure that I would have come up with it, but if I just have, like, 2 seconds to come up with a move, I'd probably just play, like, rook d8, king f7, I play like this, and then if he goes here, I have queen h5 mate. Something like that would have happened. Or if he plays like rook e6, I can at least just find like rook f8 and then this. And I can just blitz this out, just like push these pawns, just make another pass pawn, and I'm just easily winning. It was trickier here before he blundered with rook c5. If he just plays, what's the top computer move? The top computer move's queen c6. I would have felt good about that because I just trade queens. I guess his king is just wide open. And I was thinking about that during the game. I'm like, okay, if he goes like rook e8 or something, I go check. He goes here. I go bishop b4 check. And I'm just going to murder his king. I'm going to slaughter the king alive. And if he goes here, I just go like check. And then there's just checkmate here. So all that to say, I mean, we're looking at a lot of just like simple checkmates, but we got the win. We got the win against a higher rated player, against a very solid player in Nate Fuel. Always enjoyed our games. We had played a few games several years ago when I was still a learning player. I guess you could say I was a little bit lower rated and not as good. He destroyed me, I believe, twice, and it was good to kind of finally get a win against him years later. So, and he's a very cool guy, so shout out to him. Round 3. So at this point, we're 2-0, and I thought I was going to maybe play Logan Schaefer, shout out to him. He's going to be on my podcast very soon, and he is the highest rated player in Waco and about to be master, probably hopefully here in like a few weeks, if not a week or something like that. He was just playing this tournament because if he wins like 8 rating points, he just gets a little bit closer. So I thought I might play him. That didn't happen. I ended up playing Evan Bates in round 3. Now, first of all, a couple of things. You might be wondering, well, if you're keenly observant, you might be wondering, aren't you on, like, DGT here? Like, how could you win? But there's no clock. Like, what happened? Like, somehow the DGT, like, game, like, it was broadcasted, but it got deleted somehow. I'm not exactly sure. I don't even really care. Like, I was able to, like, save the game and everything, so I'm not even that worried. Well, you might also notice if you're keenly astute is, like, well, shouldn't you be playing someone higher rated? Well, not necessarily. There are only so many higher rated players to go about. I believe I was the 8 seed going to the tournament, and there's like at least 1 or 2. Well, I beat one of the higher rated players. There's like another higher rated player who lost. Maybe even another after that. I'm not exactly sure. So like, now I'm when I say higher rated, I'm saying higher rated than my previous. But actually, that makes more sense because Nate Fuel was number 3, I believe. Logan's one who I didn't play. And then, who was number 2? Oh, this other guy who just lost. He didn't have a great event. So, anyway. So, in round 3, I'm playing Evan Bates. Evan is a kid. I don't know, 12, 13 if I had to guess. Although I'm pretty bad at just guessing age ranges and stuff like that. And, he is vastly... I wanted to say fastly, but that sounds incorrect. He's rapidly improving. Because... not because. The reason I come to that conclusion is because I played him about 9 months ago in Austin when he was 1,300. Maybe he was like higher 1,300. I'm not exact sure. I don't remember the exact number, but he was in the 1,300s 9 months ago. He's now 1,800. So that's what? 500 point difference in 9 months, which is absolutely crazy. For over the board play, even I'd say for like talented young kids, that's just crazy. So he's clearly improving fast. I had the black pieces. I was the underdog, and he plays pawn to e4. And my classical repertoire, as I kind of alluded to, I mentioned and I alluded to potential opening changes in my previous video. Normally I would play e5 and just try to play solid position. I considered playing e5 and just like seeing what he does. I was like, maybe if it's on DGT, I don't necessarily want all my prep leaked. But then these games are probably going to be published anyway, so just might as well reveal some of what I've been looking to. I played c5. Played c5, knight f3, e6, d4, takes, knight c6, knight c3, and queen c7. This is called the Taimanov Sicilian. The point is, it's just very solid. You just get situations like a6, which kind of prevents knight b5 in some instances. a6, knight f6, bishop b4, b5. There's just like kind of a lot of setups that sort of go about it. Also with queen c7, you are preventing the pawn from pushing to e5. So if I play knight f6 a move earlier, he would have the option... I guess he can't play e5 anyway. So queen c7 kind of like doubly discourages it. I'm not exactly sure. I'm new to this opening, so some of the higher rated players, you're welcome to roast me in the comments for that. But anyway, I played queen c7. He played bishop e3. I played a6, and then he played queen to f3. Now the reason I put emphasis on it is because queen f3 is kind of the more trendy line from what I've heard. It's a more trendy line these days. Most people will go queen d2, f3, castle. I mean, I assume that's what most people do. Just based on my basic understanding of chess. But queen f3 is a little bit more trendy because you have ideas maybe go queen g3 in some situations, and maybe push the pawn, castle queenside, and things like that. And also if I play b5, which kind of comes up, there's some like knight sacrifice, or maybe it's a bishop sack, I don't remember. But there's some sack lines on b5 for sure. So here, the funny thing is, queen f3 was kind of the one move I looked substantially into as far as like preparation. Not for him. I didn't know I would be playing Evan. I didn't even know he plays the e4 and like queen f3, open Sicilian, all that stuff. It was just generally that was the line I looked at. Sometimes funny things happen to where you look at an opening relatively deep and then forget basic details. I did not remember the move here. The move here is just play knight f6, which makes sense, and there's no reason not to. He can't really play e5 because I just take it. I just had a brain fart. I was like, I don't know what to do. I didn't know if I play knight f6. I don't know if I play b5. I didn't know what was going on. So, I didn't play knight f6. I played the move pawn to b5, which is not a bad move. I mean, you see, like, the computer's not really budging. It's okay, but in the future, I'll be sure to play knight f6. Probably. So, you know, the lines are something like knight f6, most people castle, and it's knight e5 here, I believe. Knight e5, queen g3, and then b5. And then, yeah, there are just some lines here. The crazy sack lines are, like, after a3, bishop b7, and then bishop takes, a takes, knight d takes. I mean, this is well known. I'm not revealing anything. Queen b8. Oh, queen b8 is not the best move. Oh, did I mess up? Oh, yeah, there's, like, bishop b6. Hold on. It's like, what does the theory say? The theory says bishop takes b5. Here, rook c8. Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember looking at this. It's like knight e4. Okay, cool. What's the forced draw? Like, Logan was showing me there was a forced draw. Maybe it's, like, b5 first. Bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes, queen b8, bishop f4. No, not bishop f4. Bishop f4, d6. Rook takes d6. Ooh, should I be revealing that during video? Who's going to watch this? No one really cares. If you want to force a draw against me, that's fine. But anyway. So I play pawn to b5 here. And then he plays queen g3. And then I was thrown for a loop. So I was like, I've seen this queen g3 move. Obviously, I've studied the opening. So I'm a familiar that he plays queen f3 partly to go queen g3. But I only saw queen g3 in lines where, you know, again, knight f6, I didn't remember. But I would see it in this position with the knight on e5. So now I face queen g3 with the prospect of trading queens. And I'm like, what do I do? Do I just put a knight on e5 just to complete the position? Do I play pawn d? What's the move here? I eventually just traded queens, and we got a queenless Sicilian, which actually feels pretty freaking weird. I don't know if y'all would necessarily agree or concur or anything like that, but I'm just going to read this message. Due to a water leak in one of the main pipes, water has been shut off to the community to allow plumbers to make the repairs needed. Okay, good to know, I guess. But anyway, a queenless Sicilian felt a little bit weird, but we're just going to play a position. So I knew he has the open H file, but I didn't really see a great way for him to exploit it, especially if I just have a knight just kind of sitting on f6. He doesn't really have like a great attack he can do, and I can always play h6 as well. So I played bishop e7, he played f3, knight f6, g4, and then here I decided to make things a little bit spicy, or I potential to make things spicy. I go bishop c5. Now in bishop c5, there's a lot of stuff I have to calculate. The thing is, I'm threatening his knight, but also he has this attack going. So there could be lines where if he takes and I'm not careful, I just hang a bishop. Now, I did calculate everything, and I believe I calculated it accurately. So first of all, I thought the move he might play was just Castle Long. And I believe on Castle's Long, what was I going to do? Let me try to remember. I think Castle's Long, I was just going to trade everything and then play... D5 is a bit early. Wait, no, I can't play D5. Castles? Take. Oh, he has 2 pieces there. The point was I want to play D5, but, well, okay, apparently G5 is just even better, but I just saw something like... I guess this is actually what I calculated. Because I don't get the isolated pawn. I just missed G5, though. Yeah, G5 would have been good for him. He just wins a pawn here. Knight takes. And I don't have much going for me. So, hopefully we would have spotted it. Probably would have spotted it here. Before I played D5, then I would have just had a worse position. Just had to play move like King E7. Just try to facilitate D5 organically. So, anywho. So after Bishop C5, Castle's queenside, I kind of had a plan. If he takes C6, I don't recapture because I hang my bishop. I take here. And then he just has to like drop his knight back to A5 or something. If he goes knight takes E6, I go bishop takes E3. And if he goes knight C7, I just play king D8. And I can just recapture. And I have 2 minor pieces for the rook. And I have an extra pawn. No, he took a pawn. Yeah, he took a pawn. So it's equal material, but I have great compensation here. I have a nice bishop on the E3 square. Part of the thing was I just saw in all these variations, I just have a sweet bishop on E3, so I was like, it's got to be worth it. Even if he attacks me, I can just go to like C5 or something, and it's still just very strong. Solidify it with G5, and it's just great position. And let me just see if there's anything else. Also, I saw variations. If he tries... the other one was like knight F5. If he tries to like win my bishop back, I play rook A to B8 and I trap his knight. His knight has nowhere to go. I thought there was another variation where that was relevant. Maybe I... knight takes B5. Oh yeah, I think this was the other one. He tries to go here. But I just play this. I calculated this. I was like, I saw from afar that the knight is trapped. You can't go anywhere. Now, I didn't notice bishop takes a6, but I have knight b4, which is just pretty easily winning here. I mean, he can make things complicated, like top engine move e5. I just go knight e8, apparently. And eventually, the cream just rises, and I'm just going to be up a pawn, I believe? Yeah, I'm just up a pawn, probably. So, because the point is, I would have... I guess I just dropped. I don't know. I'm too tired to like do all the math or anything like that. But after bishop c5, he played knight f5, and I took e3. He played knight takes e3. I mean, no point, and you can't even go knight g7 because you have to recapture. So he just went knight takes, and then here I play this move pawn to d6. So my idea behind d6 is I want to just go knight d7. I want to go knight d7 and then just kind of solidify my control of the dark squares. But also, it was kind of prophylactic against g5, because then I just have the d7 square to work with. Whereas previously, if I just play like king e7 or something, he plays g5 and I have to go to e8, which wasn't as comfortable. I didn't really love that prospect. Also, I think he was kind of he was smart with knight f5, because when I take, he now has more control over d5. And ultimately, I want to play d5 to sort of like get the clamp going. That makes no sense. But the point is, this is kind of a backwards pawn that you can target with a rook or something like that. And I just want to get rid of the weakness. I just want to push it off the board. And I can't really do it immediately because I just lose a pawn. And even in some situations, even if I don't lose the pawn, it would like isolate my pawn or something. So anyway... this all happened. I played d6, and here he played a4. Not exactly sure what he's trying to do. I mean, I guess he's trying to open it up, but I'm not going to let him. I play b4, knight e2, and then a5. So I sort of get this going. Apparently, it's not accurate. Apparently, after g5, knight d7, like knight c4, he's doing really good. If I go king e7, he just has rook d1. I guess he's just piling up the pressure. But That didn't happen. He castled. I played king e7. King e7 was really the only move. It was king e7 or castles, and king e7 is just way more flexible because I can just put a rook on the d file whenever I want, and my king is closer to the center. He played knight f4. I played knight e5. And I think here, so White's always been doing slightly better because they just have, like, I just have kind of this weakness on d6. He has, like, active pieces that can go after it. I think White started to lose the thread here. He played knight c4, which I didn't really think was a great move. I was like, I play knight e5 to discourage knight c4, and then he just plays it. So I wasn't exactly sure what that was about. I just took it. Bishop takes, rook a to c8, attacking the bishop and also kind of seizing the c file. He plays b3, I play knight d7. So now we kind of see my point behind, part of my point behind d6 was to have the d7 square for myself. He plays bishop e5, I play knight c5 with the threat of taking on b3. So then he just played king b2. And then here, I play bishop c6. And he just traded. Now, I didn't calculate concretely if he tries to just refuse a trade here. I guess it's fine, but maybe you could argue the bishop's pretty passive. I just knew, like, once he did this and then played knight d3, proposed a trade of knights, like, he was kind of throwing his winning chances out the door. And I made a decision, so I played this, which, by the way, is good. This pawn is untouchable because I play knight takes d3. And then I just, no matter what, I just go rook c2 and then just infiltrate. Like, the pawn is untouchable. Like, any player rated above 1600, say, should not consider taking the pawn. So, knight takes, rook d2. Then I played h6 and offered a draw. And he ended up accepting it. Now, you might be wondering, well, Daniel, you're pushing. Like, you've clearly lost all your disadvantage. Maybe you could still argue that, like, the d-pawn's slightly weak, but you can clearly just defend it with rook c6. Why do you take a draw? Well, honestly, I was just fine just getting out of here. I've been trying to, like, tell myself, because if you follow my blog for a while and just have seen my play, you'll know that I've had problems in the past, like, accepting early draws, even against lower-rated players. I tried not to do that, but I was also like, I just won a thrilling game in round 2. This is probably equal. I think he'd probably hold a draw anyway. You could say, like, why not play it out? I was just like, let's just get out of here with 2.5. And I thought I would play Logan last round, and then I just basically guarantee my rating gain and just go home, basically. It worked out in a weird way, because if I had played on for a win and then get paired against Logan round 4 and lose, that's a worse outcome potentially than what happened, which I will get to in a minute. Actually, right now, I'm just going to take a little just vocal break. I'm just going to let my voice rest because I've been talking for basically an hour and 20 straight, and I will see you guys in just a second. So in round 4, I didn't end up getting paired against Logan for some reason, which was a little bit weird because we were both due, well, he was due, how did it work? I had black, so he was due black. Because, yeah, his third round, he played Queen's Gambit Exchange. And then, yeah, I was black. So we were kind of due alternating colors, which should have, I thought we were going to get paired. There's some reason, like, it would have had some, like, trickle-down effect on other players. I ended this tournament with 3 blacks. If you're really astute, you notice I had 3 blacks this tournament. But, as we'll show you, it doesn't really matter, potentially. So I'm paired against Ronit Potter, who is a player I've seen around before. He's from some other part of Texas. I don't know if it's like Austin or San Antonio or something like that. I would guess he's also high school age. I'd actually played him like 8 years ago when he was a little kid. I think he was actually a little lower rated and ended up being a draw, but then he's just improved faster than I have, so we rematch 8 years later. And Ronit, like my first round opponent, also plays B3. So I'm like, great, I get 2 B3s this tournament. And this guy's a little higher rated, so he's probably going to play it more accurately than my previous opponent. But I decided to sort of execute the same strategy. I went D5. He played bishop B2, knight F6, knight F3, bishop F5, and then E6. So everything's pretty much the same. as previously. He also offers a bishop trade. I took it this time. Here, I guess, kind of the comparison was knight e4. I didn't really go knight e4. It didn't... For some reason, this game didn't really occur to me. He can play queen c2, and then now he has this pressure going, so... my Benjamin in round 1, I think he played bishop d3 like a bit later. I think he played bishop e2, then bishop d3, now that I think about it. But he plays bishop d3, and again, like, if I consider going bishop g4, and I think here this time, it's actually not that good because of h3. Because if I just trade the bishop, I'm just at a disadvantage. And if I drop back, there's g4, and then he gets this. I guess the difference here is that maybe his king hasn't committed, so maybe he could go like long and then try to exploit. I'm not exactly sure. I guess like concretely he has knight h4 here, and it's hard for me to defend the pawn. If I go g5, he goes knight g6, and then just like is just invading my territory. If I just play, yeah, knight f8 is apparently the best move, but that would kind of suck to play. So anyway, I just took. He played queen takes. I castled knight e2. I played rook e8, and here he plays knight to e5. Now, pretty common, I'd say, blunder in blitz would be something like, oh, knight sees knight. I don't want to trade bishop for knight, but I want to trade knight for knight. I'm going to take. Well, then he just takes with the pawn, and the pawn is protected by the bishop, which is part of why b3 could be pretty strong, is because you have this bishop to work with, and the bishop and like the knight and all those pieces will be honing in. It'll be zeroing in on that e5 square. Obviously, like, I saw that. I didn't even consider knight takes e5 unless somehow I could make the bishop vanish mysteriously or just shove it to d2 or something, but we're clearly not going to do that. So the other trade I could consider is bishop takes e5, which I did a little bit later. I played queen c7 first, making him a commit to f4, and then, well, I took. And then after d takes, he played knight, or I played knight e4. So now it's like a situation where he had a knight on e5, I traded it, but his upside is that he has a strong pawn on e5, he has a lot of protection on it. Let's see, a lot of protection on it, but now I'm the one with the strong knight. And it's not that easy for him, actually, to just deal with it. Because if he plays like knight c3 or something, I have knight d to c5, and I just spawn a new knight on the e4 square. And if he moves the queen, I guess I'm also attacking this, so he'd have to move it here or something. I don't have to take, but I could if I wanted to just take and then just spawn my knight here. And now he's never going to remove this knight. So black's always just going to be slightly better, just basic knight for bishop principles. Now, is it like easily winnable against a higher rated solid player? I don't, it's not that easy, but I clearly would have enjoyed my position there. So after knight e4, after knight e4, he played b4 with the idea sort of stop knight c5. And here I started just kind of think strategically. I'm like, I realized I'm just better here because I have a strong knight. His like pieces are not really that active. The bishop's kind of blunted now. There's certainly some dynamics, like he has like this going. If he like castles and go f5, then he could have an attack. I was like, I'm better here, but I'm not sure how to capitalize. So what I wanted to do, I started to think, well, if I could get this going, if I can get my other knight to c4, that would just be a nightmare. A double octopus? You kidding me? In the center? That would be awesome. But I saw a variation. I was like, knight b6. So I'm like, if I get to take the pawn, that's great. But if he plays c4, I just put my knight there anyway. And boom, shala. We have two knights on the fourth rank, controlling a lot of squares. I'm not claiming to be like winning by any means, but I'm clearly in the driver's seat. It's just positionally. Maybe I can like break with a5 and just like, b6 to try to get some lines open, have a strategic advantage. But I was like, if I play knight b6, he will just go rook c1. And then if I take c4, he goes rook takes c4. And then goes here. You might be thinking, well, you play b5 and you're doing fine. Well, I am doing anything but fine. Because here's the thing. It's two minor pieces for a rook, basically. I only have one open file to work with, which he can easily shut off with like bishop c4 or like knight d4. Whereas, yeah, he has these minor pieces, all these avenues for the minor pieces to work with. In fact, can he just get the knight to d6? Maybe it's not that easy, but all that to say, this would be a great position for him. And so if he plays rook c1, I cannot take the pawn. I was like, obviously if pawn takes, then I relinquish control of the e4 square, so he would just take the knight. So I'm like, okay. So I want to play knight b6. Maybe now's not the time. What if I kind of finesse him a little bit? Now this is top engine move. Also, apparently, like knight b6 is fine because after rook c1, I can just play the move I played next. So I guess it transposes. So anyway, I was like, what if I finesse him a little bit? And I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this because I actually felt like this was one of my better strategic calculations or strategic plans of the whole tournament, if not like just recently. Because, like, you know, my games, how they went, like, first game I swindled the guy. Well, I played some tactics. Second game, I also kind of swindled the guy, I guess now I'm thinking about it. Then third game was just a solid draw where I just was kind of slightly worse, but ended up just forcing him to trade the pieces and held a draw. And here's how I finesse him. I was like, I'm going to go pawn to a5, which is the best move. Taking is not to be, no one would take. No one, like, above 16, I'm going to say 1600 again. No one above 1600 would take because, like, I just take and he just has a terrible pawn structure now. Not to mention that his king could just get attacked. So he's not going to take. And I was like, okay, but what if he, like, castled? Because the thing is, I can try to, like, pry open the position, but if I just take and then just, like, take, then it's just, like, going to be all for naught, right? So here's my thought process. He castles, which is what he did. Now I go knight b6. And if he puts a rook on the c-file, if he puts this rook on the c-file, it's more apparent. I just take, and now I have the a-file to myself. In fact, rook a2 here is apparently the best move, which kind of, again, just kind of shows my point. But if he puts the other rook on the c-file, I take, I play rook takes a1, and he has to play bishop takes a1. And then I just get the a-file to myself. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's nothing special, but I have something to play for, right? Apparently there were, like, improvements, like here, queen e7's a better move, I guess just targeting this guy, I'm not exactly sure, but that was kind of my thought process. And I mean, computer is concurring that a5 then knight b6 or vice versa was good, so I guess I came up with something called the Kramnik line, right? So that's not to be arrogant or anything, that's just a joke. So that did happen, I played knight b6, and then he took. So I guess he wasn't really pleased with the idea of just putting a rook on the c-file and surrendering the a-file, so he took. I took with the c-pawn. Taking with the e-pawn is scary because he might have ideas of like f5, f6, whereas I take with c, I discourage him from playing f5 because I could just take it. He then played rook a c1, then I played knight c4, and then bishop d4 takes b5. So I'm like, now I'm really doing good. Now I get my double octopus on e4 and c4. And the pawn is just holding them together. Now, I say double octopus. He can trade the knights off. Let me actually go back and move. So I was here. This was kind of a moment. Yeah, I spent 6 minutes out of my 25 minutes remaining. I was trying to make rook a... Sorry, not rook a3. Rook a3 actually blunders because he would just take. And then there's a pin. So I almost did that. I don't think I reached out or anything. I was planning on playing rook a3, and I'm like, wait, that's a blunder. That would have been a tragic way to just end the tournament. But I wanted to make rook a2, then rook d2 worked. That looked sexy. I'm not gonna lie. Just if he does nothing, well, a3 would be terrible. Just say king h1. If I get this, like, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. But the thing is, I was like, well, I think here I just thought here, I think maybe here I thought rook c2. Or is there like a tactic here? Let me think. Rook c2, takes. I guess I have rook a e8. I don't remember concretely. You know what? I think I did think it was knight c3. Rook d2, queen b1. And I was like, I didn't really see a way to break through here. I was looking at this with my friend, I think he was suggesting here? Was it? I don't remember. I guess there's stuff I can play for. Apparently, just knight c3 is really good. And then bishop c3, rook e2, and then I guess I just, like, swing my other rook to the a2 square, and then I'm just, like, pressing. But that didn't happen. I was like, because I thought about just, like, getting a situation where I, like, get to keep both my knights, but I was fine with just playing b5 and trading one off, and then going rook a2. So then I can just put my other rook on the a file, and then I have sort of a clear attacking point. So yeah, we just go rook d2, we go like rook a2, I can somehow get my queen involved if I need to, my knight's a beast. We're just chilling, right? Then he plays, sorry, he played rook c2 first, I played this, and then he plays f5. And I'm like, oh snap, he is getting counterplay. I mean, now I don't see the evaluation during the game, so I mean, black's clearly doing fine, but I'm like, is he gonna take and open some light square weaknesses? Is he gonna, like, push and then somehow finagle his way to my king? I was scared. I was like, uh-oh. So my next move, yeah, I spent 7 out of my remaining 16 minutes, and I'm like, okay, well, we're better. We just have to defend here. And here, I had a calculation that I'm actually very proud of. So it's the complete opposite of the horrendous miscalculation where I did this as the thumbnail and just had, like, I mean, it wasn't that I lost the game. It was just that there was just a move where I, like, forgot that I had to clear a checkmate or something. Anyway, I had, like, a calculation I was pretty proud of. So I saw this line. I was like, okay, well, I noticed this guy is weak. And I want my queen on this side. I would love my queen on this side. So I can play queen e7, kind of forking the concepts of queen g5 and queen takes b4. My main focus is queen b4. But I'm like, I'm going to start by not moving pieces just so you can try to follow along. So I'm like, queen e7, attacking the pawn. But I thought he could play f6. Just try to shred me open. I'm not going to take, because that's just going to help him out. Just have, like, an open file or something. Like, I'm going to take. And then he takes g7. Right? Yeah. And then he takes g7. I'm not going to recapture. I'm going to leave the pawn on g7 as a spy pawn. And I'll go for that in a second. I'm going to take, and go queen d2. If he trades queens, I'm just going to be eventually up a pawn in the endgame. But if he just moves the queen somewhere, I have rook a2. And it's lights out because I have the queen and rook bearing down on the second rank, right? So that's the calculation. Queen e7, f6, queen b4 takes queen. Sorry, rook takes queen d6, queen d2, and then, you know, worst case scenario is we just get an equal endgame. Not equal, sorry. Let me totally rephrase that. Best case. Oh my gosh, I am so out of it. Y'all can tell. Worst case scenario for me, assuming we go down that path, is I get a pawn up endgame where I have a pass b pawn. That would be clinically winning. I mean, I'd have to show some technique, obviously, but that would be winning. So let's see it in action. Queen e7. Now, if he just plays an ordinary move like bishop c3, apparently, oh yeah, I can just take and then like take e3. I'm sure I would have seen that. Yep. So yeah, he played f6. And then I play queen takes b4. And then he takes g7. So the natural inclination, I'll just recapture. But the problem is he plays like rook a2 and then queen d1. And then now my king's a target. I didn't even see that move specifically. I just, like, it didn't even occur to me to take. Because here's the thing. This is what's called a spy pawn. A spy pawn is when your pawn is next to my king. You're not attacking me because the pawn moves diagonally. But you're blocking your own pieces from being able to attack. So you can't go queen d1, queen g5. I mean, you could try it, I guess, but that doesn't work because of your own pawn. So, I mean, basically, this is like my kingside pawn. I mean, like, I can't just move my king or anything, but, and if he gets a queen to h6, it's game over, but I didn't see how he does that, right? So, we went down this path, I took, and then I played queen d2. I'll also show you what's fascinating is I don't even have to take on c2. It's the best move, but a close second, if I wanted to be flashy, is queen queen d2. Just sacking my queen. But his queen is just garbage. And I bring my rooks in. There's like a line like... Because he has to move this rook so he doesn't get like... what's that mate called? Is that the... What's the mate called? Blind swine mate, I think? Let's see. Is that a blind swine mate? I want to know now. It's where I get the 2 rooks and he has the rook on f1. I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's like this. Check, check, and checkmate. The point is that he has his own rook. No one's watching at this point. He has his own rook on the f1 square, preventing him from escaping. Blind swine mate. Yeah, that's it. Okay, confirmed. Cool. So, anyway, he could try like moving the rook away to avoid the mate, but I apparently have a forced mate in 6, which check. If he go, I guess king f1's the fastest way, and then rook a to f2, rook e2. Oh, and if king f1, there's knight d2. And if he goes here, I have rook d2. If he goes king c1, I have rook g1, that's mate. And if he goes king e1, rook g1's mate. And the knight's protecting it. Wow. I think if he puts his rook on like the d file, then I take. I think this was the most accurate way for him to defend, but I can go like... I think even takes here is fine. Well, I guess takes is not that good, but... Knight d2 check is apparently even good, and then just take more material. But again, I guess I have to be accurate, because of this, there's apparently e4 and things get complicated. Fascinating. I'm gonna look into all this later. But anyway, I could have like sacked the queen apparently for the second time this tournament, but I saw the more simple, straightforward rook takes, queen d2. And yeah, he has to trade and then just try to hold this. I mean, computer says it's completely lost, but I mean, the reason is I just put my rook behind and then push the passed pawn. Pretty simple. I could just put my knight back in c4 if I need to, and then should just be clinical. But he decided to lose faster. He played queen b3, which, I mean, I'd call it a blunder. I guess it's a blunder in the fact that like he could have just like given me more opportunities to mess up, but I just play this move, rook a2, and I just have unstoppable mate, unless he just sacks the queen or just sacks the bishop and then sacks the queen. And he just resigned here. I mean, you know, you can just try to play this, but it's everything that I was talking about with the previous endgame. I just have a queen instead of a rook. So, yeah, this would be pretty straightforward. His bishop is literally the definition of stagnant. I can just reroute or something and then just... Well, maybe not there, but yeah, I just have several ways to win. And, yeah, so that was the tournament. I ended on another victory against a high-rated player. I finished on 3.5 out of 4. I came in clear second because Logan, shout out to him, he ended up winning all his games and took first place with 4 out of 4. I took second with 3.5. And let's look at the cross table real quick, if I can pull that up. Maybe I go there. So, as you can see, I placed second. I got my rating all the way from 1791 to 1857 over the board. And finally, the reason you're here, the reason for the thumbnail and title, why I called it something like chess high score or something, is because if you look at my rating history, that's my highest rating ever. Oh, sorry, you don't see that. Let's just shrink myself. I'm not that important, but that's my all-time highest rating. So, in chess, in competitive chess, we call that peaking. So now my peak is 1857, which is my current rating. Previously was like, I think 18... I forget already. It was like 1837, I think. But now it's 1857. So we peaked by like, you know, like 20 points, which is good. And I just wanted to kind of give this moment to just kind of talk a little bit about it, because I've talked about it in like a blog post, like actually the blog post where the last time I peaked, which was like 3 years ago, for any competitive tournament chess player, and I imagine it applies to like other sports as well, where there's like a rating system or like a scoring system, peaking in chess, at least your chess rating. Now, you could argue, have I peaked in skill or did I earlier? I'm not sure, but peaking in chess is one of the best feelings you can feel as a competitive tournament player. And for me, it had been a few years. I kind of my first, peak. I mean, I was, when you're an improving player, you get all these peaks, but I got to 1800 when I was a junior in high school after I had an Unreal tournament at the high school championship where I placed 11th, which is just literally a miracle run, just given my rating at the time. And then it kind of went up and down. At some point, it just went years, just never getting above 1800. And I peaked again in 2021 because at that time I was really working on my game. I had like a coach and everything like that, and was serious about playing tournaments, and I ended up peaking there. So I got my rating back to like 1837 or something. And so yeah, it's just been like since then, it had been 3 years since I'd been above 1800, then back below, and I'd been like, so yeah, just wanted to just like kind of mention that because just even for like an online player, like when you get your all-time high rating, maybe that's more what you call it, I'm not exactly sure, that's like one of the best feelings and like you can feel as a tournament chess player. And it's just I don't know, it's really cool. And I also just appreciate all the support that you all give, all the congratulations, whether it be from like the local chess community or even like my family or something like that. It's really cool to see. And I think the thing is, I'm not going to try to let it get over my head. The truth is, I'm probably overrated. Like, I was 17, 14, like, 3 months ago, so I'm probably more, like, in the 1700, 1750 range. I'm not trying to be, like, a Debbie Downer or anything like that. I just think I had one good tournament, and, will I be able to reach 1900? I'm not exactly sure. I probably would have said no, but then I probably didn't even know if I would ever peak again, so, we'll see how that goes. I'll continue to play tournaments. I'll try to study a little bit harder. I think this will motivate me to just study harder, because if I don't, then just like that, my peak is going to vanish. And then I'm going to be back below 1800, just back to the 1750 gutter, as they say. There's something else I was going to say. But no, yeah, I just wanted to say just how much I really appreciate all the support. All 150 of my subscribers and probably like 40 viewers or something like that. I really appreciate you watching, and like if you're in my Discord server, shout out to you. And yeah, I think we're gonna end it on that. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and join my Discord. I will I never credited the photo work. Well, his link will be in the description. My friend Matt Radoskowski, shout out to him. He was the one who came up with the kind of player icons. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you all so much. Again, I really appreciate your support and everything. And oh yeah, I was also gonna say, like, I'm gonna try not to like get over my head, because it's really easy to just be like elated during these times and then just like try to let it flow. But also I gotta like study. That's all I wanted to say. All right. Peace out. Bye.